Hey guys, it's Mahala. So, your 20s are supposed to be the decade where you figure your life out, right? Well, I'm thinking now, sitting here at 31 years old, that that's the decade where you make all of your bad decisions and most of your mistakes in life. So, here I am sharing 5 things that I learned in my 20s the hard way. Number one, start saving now and not someday. Enjoy your 20s, but don't blow every dollar that you make. Trust me. When I was in my 20s, I was going to school, I had part-time job, I had student loans and blow money from those student loans that should not have been blow money. And I spent every dollar. I did not save money like I should have, and that is something I regret. Something that I would suggest that I wish I would have done is build an emergency fund, because when I was in my 20s, I had pets, fur babies, and there were many times I had to take them to the vet and things happened that I needed to pay for, and I did not save money for things like that. Of course, there's other emergencies that might come up, car issues. You don't want to always have to call mom and dad, or you don't want to always have to call a friend or somebody to help you. You need to have an emergency fund and some money that is set aside for those kinds of things. Another thing, don't get a credit card. Um, don't. A lot of people will advise you to get one because you need to build your credit. Yes, having good credit is important, especially for buying a home later, getting a car, having good interest rates. But when you're in your 20s, if you're not financially responsible yet, and you're having fun still, I highly advise you not to get a credit card. I ended up getting 4 credit cards, maxed them all out, and I had to ask family to help me figure it out because I was young and dumb. Your future self will thank you. So start saving just little bits out of each paycheck, make an emergency fund. I really think that this would help 20-year-old me to get this advice. It really is important. I'm 31 now, and I'm looking back thinking, man, I should have done this. Then you'll have a little bit of money saved up later on. So it's always better to start saving early. You don't have to save everything, but don't leave your future self with nothing. Number two, your health is either working for you or against you. Now, I came from a family that was unhealthy, very unhealthy with eating habits, lifestyle choices. There was no regular physical activity. They were honestly all couch potatoes, and I was raised to be that way. And a lot of overeating, eating unhealthy foods, binge eating, emotional eating, and I was raised with all of those awful habits. And I wish in my 20s that I would have learned healthier habits and broken those unhealthy habits, because the older you get, the harder it is to break those habits. I am so serious right now. It is so difficult to break habits that you have had since you were a child. It's very difficult. So I wish I would have spent my 20s moving my body regularly, maybe going to little workout classes, working out with friends that I had from college. Yes, when you're in your 20s, you want to go out and have Taco Bell in the middle of the night when you're drunk, or, whatever. But like, I wish I would have spent the majority of my time eating good foods and building habits that are going to benefit me now in my 30s and later in my 40s and so on, because the older you get, the harder it is to break bad habits. Break unhealthy habits that you have now before later, because you don't want them to become your new normal. You don't want them to become just that's just how I am, because that's never an excuse. It's not an excuse now when I'm in my 30s, when I'm looking back at my 20-year-old self thinking, what were you doing, Mahala? Just highly recommend break those bad habits and take care of your body, even when you're young and dumb. Number three is I wish I had spent my t- Number three is I wish I had spent my 20s being single for a while. I spent all of my 20s in a long term relationship. And looking back now, I wished I would have spent some of those years by myself. A lot of people will either be in a long term relationship or they'll go from relationship to relationship. And because I feel like a lot of us feel like we're afraid to be alone. Maybe we have abandonment issues. I don't know what it is. Um, but I feel like if I would have let myself be single for even half of my 20s, I would have learned who I was a lot more. I would have learned who I was without a partner. I could have traveled more. I would have traveled more or tried new things or just made decisions and choices that benefited me that I wanted to do and that, you know, where I didn't have to consider somebody else. Because, like I said earlier, your 20s are a time to explore and grow and figure out who you are. And when you're with someone and you're in a serious relationship with somebody, you're not really like, not allowed, but like, yeah, you're not really allowed. It's not acceptable to just do whatever the hell you want to do. It really isn't because you love that other person and then they love you and you're in a serious relationship, so you want to consider what they think and what they want to do. When you're single though, you can do whatever the fuck you want and make whatever decisions you want, go wherever you want to go, whenever you want to go there. And I wish I would have done that for at least half of my 20s. It's also important to learn how to be independent without getting constant support from somebody else. That's very important. And I've always been a very independent person. I didn't necessarily rely on my significant other, um, like living wise. I went to college and got I have a full time job. I always supported myself and had a way to figure stuff out. But I think it's just important to tread your own path and be by yourself and learn how things work. And you just grow more and you can figure out really like who you are better, I think. I don't regret every part of that relationship, but I I feel like I grieve the person that I was that didn't get to actually experience my 20s to their full potential. Yeah. Okay. Number 4, we're almost done, is don't go to college just because everybody says that you should. Trust me. I taught high school for several years. I taught middle school for several years. And one thing that I always told my kids is that a lot of adults are going to pressure you into figuring out what you want to do by the time you're 18. And they're going to pressure you into going to college because that's what you do to get a good job. I respectfully disagree. College can be a great investment, but you have to know what you're getting into and you have to realize the financial gravity of the situation. Okay. If you're going to go to college, you need to know what career you're aiming for. Um, there's a lot of people that go to college and they know for sure they're going to be an engineer of some sort, they're going to be a doctor of some sort, and they go for that. That's amazing. Like, that's fine. But if you're not entirely sure, it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to experiment with different things. But before you go and do that and you blow tens of thousands of dollars of imaginary college money, you need to realize that money is not imaginary and it's going to come back to bite you in the ass. Okay? I have $65,000 plus of debt. I have a master's degree. I went to art school. I'm working for a utility company right now and pursuing YouTube. So I just encourage you to really, really think about if you want to go to college, think about how you're going to pay for it. Have a game plan. And don't think of that money as just fun money, imaginary money that doesn't exist when you get those student loans out, because those student loans are going to be there when you're done. And you're going to have to pay them back one way or another. If you're not thinking about college, explore trade options, apprenticeships, other avenues that you might be able to pursue that are not college. Because trust me, you don't need to go to college to be successful in life. Just don't borrow tens of thousands of dollars without a plan. Okay, number five is that unhealed pain never disappears. It just waits there. It just waits and waits for its time. It waits and waits for its time to strike or its time to slowly linger back into your subconscious and ruin your day. I experienced many things during high school, my early 20s that I never necessarily processed. I never necessarily worked through on my own or figured out how I felt about them or how those things made me feel, or how those things changed me. And a lot of that has come up later in life. And I think that's just a part of growing up and like realizing, like, wow, you can't just, brush things off sometimes. You might have a thick skin, you might have a lot of walls built up, but still those things kind of come and linger into your future, into the middle of your day when you haven't thought of that thing in 10 years, and all of a sudden it's in your mind and you're sitting in your car crying or realizing like, wow, I should have processed this sooner. Because the longer you wait and the longer you suppress things, the more of an explosion that happens, an eruption that happens when those emotions kind of come to the surface later in life. What you don't heal in your 20s, it's going to show up later. So make sure you're working through things. Go to a therapist if you can, if you could afford that. There's a lot of therapists that work with insurance, or talk to friends or family, somebody that loves you and cares for you, that would be a listening ear, somebody that could give good, decent, like wholesome advice. Um, that's something I wish I would have done instead of just being a tough cookie and pushing through. It's important to be resilient. It's important to be determined and have thick skin in life, but it's just as important to work through your emotions, troubleshoot how you feel after you've experienced some tough things, if you've experienced trauma, and never suppress those emotions because they are going to show up later and they might show up to bite you in the ass. Listen, you guys, my 20s were so much fun. They were a lot of fun. I have so many good experiences. But sitting here now, I'm 31 years old and I have learned a lot. I have learned a lot. I've been through so many things, even now, just in my 30s, and I've only been in my 30s for, almost 2 years. It's just, there's always things to learn, and it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to make bad decisions. I mean, that's what growing up is all about, and learning is all about. You're not going to learn anything unless you make mistakes first, right? So those are some things that I learned the hard way. Hopefully, that will help you not necessarily learn those things the hard way like I did. I love you guys. Bye.